What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Around the Felt. We're continuing our mini-series tonight, talking about the Atlanta Falcons, recapping their 2024 season, giving a letter grade, and talking about the offseason thus far and what's to come in the draft. I am your host, Colin Tong. Joining me tonight, my co-host, Reagan Loer. Reagan, how you doing?
I'm good. What's up, Falcons fans? Let's talk ball. Let's talk some shop.
Let's talk some dirty birds. Not the best season for Atlanta, 8-9. Not super ugly in that regard, but another season in which you missed the playoffs and you look at this roster and you're like, damn, what could have been? A lot of meat left on that bone, Reagan. What grade did you give them?
I gave them a D+, just because, 8 wins is nice. I thought this team was in a very lightweight type division. You could argue it's, the most winnable division in football. And they go out and only win 8 wins when you're kind of like in win now. And it's like Kirk Cousins is going to turn the franchise around, end the playoff drought, get us in. And then to have him collapse in the way he did and the team just not able to win. And then you match up against the Bucs, the team that wins the division, and you're able to beat them twice, but then you just can't beat anyone else to actually win the division. Like it's sad that it's sad. It really is, because you had the head-to-head tiebreaker. You beat the Buccaneers twice. You put up a lot of points, but apparently only Kirk Cousins likes to play against them. So it's a lost season. I mean, the nice bright spot is when Penix did finally take over. He looked pretty good. I definitely think they got it.
In that last game against Carolina, he lit them up.
Yeah, I definitely think they got themselves a guy in him. I'm not going to act like I'm not going to give him like the Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix tag yet. But I definitely would say, in limited play, he looks like he's legit. So I'm excited to see what he can do next year. And I think, with the free agency moves, depending on where they go in the draft, this is definitely a team that could be winning the division. Like on paper, if Penix is just somewhat better than what Kirk Cousins was, they should be able to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I gave him a D, Reagan. So a little bit worse than what you gave him. I thought this team was going to win the division finally with no more Arthur Smith in the picture. Bringing in Kirk Cousins seemed like the answer at quarterback. With Bijan, with Algier, with London, Pitts. I mean, Jesus, man. I'm not drafting him in fantasy football next year. I'm over the Kyle Pitts experience, and that's my dude. So that sucks that even with Kirk Cousins and Penix, it didn't really come together for him yet again. So not good, but really happy with Darnell Mooney. I mean, let's be honest. This is a D because the Kirk Cousins experiment, which you gave a 4-year, $160 million deal with 90 guaranteed, it's already over, right? You're keeping him as a very expensive backup, which sucks. But I do like that they moved off of Kirk when they did. He went on a 5-game stretch in which he had 1 touchdown to 9 interceptions. 5-game stretch when you were in the thick of things in this division, and then Kirk just really shit the bed, and you had to make the move. And this is why you took Penix. You caught a lot of heat for it, but you know what? If Penix becomes what we think he can become, he didn't look great against the Giants and the Commanders his first 2 starts. He was, he made some big-time throws. You could see the zip he has on those throws. He has the arm talent, but, it was his first couple NFL starts. No big deal. But then Carolina, and I know Carolina the worst defense in football last year, but he lit them up in Week 18. So that was something that was a positive to end the season on. Bijan, much stronger year in year 2, the back that we are expecting to see. I think he's right up there in the top 5 backs in the league, which is nice. I mean, your offense wasn't really the problem either. You were the 6th total offense, 5th passing offense, 10th rushing, 13th scoring. Your defense was just garbage.
Well, and a lot of turnovers too.
Yes, and a lot of obviously, you have all those passing yards, but Kirk, as I mentioned, went on a 5-game stretch with 9 picks and 1 touchdown. So you weren't scoring at that time. You were turning the ball over, putting your defense in bad situations, but still, you're 23rd total and 23rd scoring defense.
They were 5th. Yeah, they were 5th in passing yards.
It's crazy. Yeah. So not good. Defensively, I mean, are they ever going to get a pass rush? It seems like we talk about this every year, man. Like, they need more help up front. Terrell's just not the same guy that he was a couple years back. So you hoping he can get that back. Jesse Bates is a positive, but Ultimately, it's a D. An eight-win season. You were trying to win the division. Tampa Bay wasn't a juggernaut by any stretch of the means. And you beat them head-to-head, as you mentioned, twice. So when that happens, you got to think that Atlanta is going to win the division. And they didn't. So it's a D. It's a D. I'm still bullish on Raheem Morris as their head coach, but it's got to be up to Mykel Penix, right? You have a good offensive line in front of you. You have Bijan. You have the weapons in London. You're happy with Mooney. Could they add a third receiver? Sure, but that's a premium, right? Like ultimately, they got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. Morris is on the defensive side of the ball, so I expect that's what they're going to do in the draft here.
I don't know why you would expect that.
I mean, it's got to be.
I don't think you could expect that at all. Yeah, we said that last year, and
it's got to be. Yeah, well, they took a quarterback. They're not taking a quarterback this time.
No, I know. But the way Atlanta's drafted over the past 5 years, I don't think you could expect them to do anything on the defensive side of the ball.
I know. You're right.
You'd be a fool to expect them to go defensive.
Yeah, maybe I'm just an idiot and thinking
honestly,
of the year they finally take a pass rusher, but
and you're gonna give me shit for what I'm saying because I say it often, but they actually should trade back because they have 5 total draft picks. So they're a team that definitely should trade back and try to recoup some capital. Especially
if like Sanders starts to slide, team moving up, like that would make sense.
Because having 5 draft picks is never an ideal situation. I mean, the nice thing is actually, and 2 of them are 7th rounders, so they only have, they have the 15th pick, then they have the 14th pick in the 2nd round, and then the 16th pick in the 4th. So they have a day 1 pick. They have 1 day 2 pick, and then they have a 4th rounder, and then 2 7ths. So, yeah,
not ideal, man.
They really
need
to trade back at multiple times in this draft. Whether or not they stick and pick in the 1st round, in that 2nd round, and in that 4th round, you have to move back and get more capital because, those 7th round picks are not premium picks either.
No, they're not. So to get into the offseason here, they did bring in Leonard, Floyd on a 1-year deal to boost that pass rush. I like it. Low risk, 1-year deal. Fine. They brought in Divine Deablo at linebacker, 2-year, $14 million. Fine. They extended their left tackle, Jake Matthews, who's been just the staple of that offensive line for years. So that's a solid move. They did release Grady Jarrett, though. Now, the production wasn't there like it was early in his career, but Chicago was very quick to scoop him up. I think it was like 15 minutes later he was signed. So crazy. But, that's another hole in that defensive line that you're going to have to fill, Reagan.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by that, honestly. And, it goes back to what you were saying earlier, that this team really needs to draft somebody in the 1st round on the defensive side of the ball, especially if you're letting guys walk. So I hope they do the right thing. I think there's a lot of edge. I mean, the interior isn't exactly – there's not a ton of guys on the interior that you're going to be able to draft there at 15. So I don't know if they –
I don't think so. I think
I don't think Graham falls that far. And, I just said they have 5 picks. So you ain't trading up for Mason Graham. So that tells me, they're probably addressing some of the beef on the interior in the 2nd round or the 4th round. But, I would think for sure edge is going to have to be their top need. I mean, Judon obviously was not at all what they had hoped trading for him. So
yeah. And now he's gone. I mean, you look at that defensive line, it's like, yeah, Leonard Floyd, 1-year deal. Doesn't stop you from drafting an edge.
No, because then you're in the same spot next year when he's gone.
Arnold Edebike, I'm not really pumped with his development, so I think you're fine there. David Amenyeta at nose tackle is fine. So they definitely need pass rush help here. And, in my mock, I was targeting Mykel Williams, keeping him in the state of Georgia. I think it just makes a lot of sense, dude. The production wasn't there for Williams at Georgia, but a freak athlete, monster frame, going to slot right in and be your starting end. I just think it makes so much sense. I think Jalen Walker's gone by then. Mike Green's in play here. I mean, if they want to go interior, Kenneth Grant from Michigan, perhaps. I mean, maybe Walter Nolan. I mean, I don't know. It's got to be defensive line in my mind because I look at this secondary. I'm like, it's really not bad. I'm like, Terrell's not. Is he what he was 2 years ago? No. But I'm still excited about what he can be. He can get back to that level.
Oh,
Jesse
yeah.
Bates was a dog for them. Mike Hughes is fine. Jordan Fuller's okay. You don't have a gaping hole on the back end. You do need a lot of help up front. I think it's got to be edge, and it's a great edge class.
Yeah. That's why it's it will be interesting. Like, this is a team that probably hopes, unless, I mean, I guess you could say they could always trade back if Sanders falls, but you don't almost want some of these guys slipping, and you want like a team to reach on Jackson Dart so that some of these edge rushers continue to fall, some of these teams to address the O-line early. So then you have your pick of the litter at the edge, because it is a deep class. And I think a lot of teams will select edge. It's just a matter of how many are left that you view as, top tier edge rushers at pick 15.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get Drock in here. We got any questions for the Atlanta Falcons?
Drock's got one question for the Atlanta Falcons tonight, boys. Give me 1 second while ChatGPT loads.
But also with the Falcons, and I'll pose this to Falcons fans right now, but do you guys want the Falcons to trade Kirk Cousins, or are you fine with him staying there? Like, I almost feel like him being in that locker room this season is going to be terrible for Penix, because having a veteran that has that much money, has had that success just staring over your shoulder. And, Kirk could be the greatest teammate ever and do all the right things. But at the end of the day, the mental edge goes into it is that this guy was originally brought in to be the starter, and he's just looking over your shoulder. And it's like, at any moment, if I get injured, if I slip up and he comes in and plays well again, does he take the job back over? So I do think they need to get rid of him as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it seems like, just based off musical chairs right now, the Browns are the only team that makes sense, unless Rodgers does retire, and then Pittsburgh could come into play here.
I don't even know if the Browns I don't know. I don't know what the Browns are doing.
I think they're taking Shedeur too, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
All right. The only question I got for you guys is, have the Falcons completely wasted Kyle Pitts' prime by not having a real quarterback since he was drafted?
Oh, what a great question. So one of my first ever blog posts on aroundthefeltsports.com, check it out if you haven't been to the website, was free Kyle Pitts, a message to Arthur Smith. Because I couldn't stand the way Arthur Smith was using him. I couldn't stand the quarterback play he had. Taylor Heineke, freaking Desmond Ridder. Like, come on, man, right? So
Marcus Mariota, a little bit of him.
Mariota, I was going every other direction from just being on Kyle Pitts. How Jonnu Smith was getting all those looks in Arthur Smith's offense. Well, you know what? Maybe Jonnu Smith is just a better player than Kyle Pitts.
I mean, we saw he was good with Miami this year.
Oh, he was, very solid Miami. I'm waving the white flag on my guy, Kyle Pitts, former Gator. Go Gators. I'm done making excuses for him. He doesn't look like the same player he was at Florida. He doesn't look like he has that burst. He does not create separation. He doesn't have the best hand. Like, he didn't drop a ball at Florida. Now, like, he dropped some balls. I'm like, you know what? I'm waving the white flag at one of my first ever blog posts. It's not free Kyle Pitts. Like, they're not going to give him a big contract, but, I don't think he's ever going to live up to being the 4th overall pick. And it really stings, the fact that Jamar Chase was picked right after. And Penny Sewell.
Yeah, I think he still could. I do think a lot of it does have to go into terrible quarterback play early on. It almost, kind of put that, or just like didn't help his development, because you see a lot of guys develop because they have such good quarterback play, and he was a guy, unfortunately, that didn't have him good quarterbacks throwing the ball. So I think if he does have a change of scenery with a veteran quarterback, or a better quarterback, he's a guy we could see be rejuvenated. I don't know if he'll ever get to his draft status, but we have seen tight ends with high capital go to other situations and succeed. I mean, Evan Engram, there were a lot of question marks with him, and granted, he wasn't 4th, but with the Giants, he had a lot of flashes, and then he went to Jacksonville and has since been cut. But his first season in Jacksonville, he had a career year, so I do think he could have a change of scenery and turn it around, or he could be a guy like Noah Fant too, high draft pick, change of scenery, and still nothing changes. So we've seen plenty of tight ends figure it out, and then also be bust, like OJ Howard, bust. Bounce around. So I'm still not out on him. The talent's still there. I would go out if you're a dynasty player in fantasy football. I try to get him for cheap. Give him a 3rd, 4th round pick, little lottery pick, especially after this season. I doubt because what is he? Did they pick up his 5th year option? I don't know.
I think they did.
I'd imagine they would, because you don't know if you can pay him or not, and they're probably better off being like, hey, if he balls out in his 5th year, we're happy to pay him.
I think
But
this is his 5th year option, is it not? Isn't this his 5th year?
I would think so. I find it hard to believe that because I know they definitely didn't pay him, because I don't even know you would pay him.
Yes. So, yes, this is his 5th year option. 21, 22, 23, 24, 2025 was the 5th year option that was picked up that he's playing under. So he is a free agent after this season.
Yeah, this is going to be a big year for him. If he balls out, somebody will pay him, whether it's Atlanta or another team.
He did have 1,000 yards as a rookie too, like the first tight end since Mike Ditka to do that. So there's also that side of the coin where we have seen him be very productive, although the touchdowns weren't there, whatever, but the yardage was there.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one. Like, Falcons fans, what do you want them to do with Kyle Pitts? Are you out on him? Do you want them to pay him a contract in the offseason and, extend him for another couple of years? I don't know. I feel like that's definitely an interesting one, because I think most of them would say, like, yeah, he's a bust and he's very frustrating, because at least Drake London and Bijan, you spent high picks on them, and they've obviously, lived up to their potential. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if Kyle Pitts walks and becomes a Giant and rejuvenates with, our future QB1, because I am a big Kyle Pitts fan. I've been stashing him in Dynasty for a very long time. So, in our league, Reagan, I took him at pick number 10 overall after his rookie year, in which he had 1,000 yards, and I thought I was getting Dynasty tight end 1 for the next 5 to 8 years. And unfortunately, it did not pan out that way.
Yeah, now it never does. It never does sometimes.
It never does. Hit our comments, Falcons fans. Let us know. What do you want to do in the draft? What do you want to do with Kirk Cousins? Is Kyle Pitts going to be a Falcon long term? Let us know how great Bijan and London are, not just for our fantasy football teams, but also for your offense. And hey, are they finally going to draft an edge rusher? Is this the year, Falcons fans? Because I know you're all clamoring for it. We appreciate you tuning in. Any last words, Reagan?
I would say Kyle Pitts figure it out. Mykel Penix figure it out. And let's get Atlanta back into the playoffs, baby.